Hey guys, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me again. As you guys can see, another day, another Transformers review here. This time, very excited to finally have essentially Cybertron Jazz. This is part of the Buzzworthy Bumblebee line. I think here in the US, this is a Target exclusive in stores. You could also get it online, and then also has Repulse, which is where I got my pre-order. So I'm very glad. Unlike the Buzzworthy Bumblebee, the Cybertron Bumblebee version that I got a couple of months ago, that one I had to go through like a bunch of Targets, different days, different weeks to finally find one. In this case, as I said, I was able to put in my pre-order with Hasbro Pulse, and this showed up in the mail as it should be. So really excited to finally have this in my hands. You guys can see there the Buzzworthy Bumblebee packaging, no plastic. I don't even think he's held in by anything. He's kind of just sitting there in a cardboard. The standard Buzzworthy Bumblebee packaging, and again, here he is. Origin Autobot Jazz, they call him. Again, part of the Transformers Legacy Evolution. There is his awesome Cybertron mode, which kind of looks like a dustbuster. And here he is, Jazz himself. And his evil fusion trick is that he can attach that little grappling hook to his gun. Very gimmicky, but hey, we got the figure, we got the Cybertron mode, so I am really happy. So I'm gonna tear into this and give you guys my opinion. All right, guys. So back here with Jazz. Finally got him out of his cardboard prison, and what an awesome figure! I think so far there are some things that I'm not too crazy about, but before we get going, stuff that you get with him, obviously instructions. I would suggest you do sort of go over them. Once you get used to the different steps, they are not that complicated, but there are little things. With the build quality that kind of concern me that I'll go over in a bit. But it's a pretty nice transformation nonetheless. So instructions, that's something you can do. As you can see here, he does come with some accessories. So you could see he's got them on. The first one being his actual gun here, which I will attempt to take off his hand here. And yeah, here's a little gun rifle thing. Pretty simple, but gets the job done. Some detailing there on the handle and on the side. So really cool nonetheless. And you also get his hook. No, it doesn't have like a chain or a string or anything, but that's something you can add yourself. Now, this is the hook itself. There is another part to it that actually comes off. So I'll show you right now. So essentially, the hook itself is this whole thing here. It does come off, or you can turn it if need be, but this kind of goes the tabbed into here. The hands themselves are kind of normally like this, and you can then turn this and stick that in there, and looks like he is about to throw the hook there, the grappling thing, and then he's holding his gun. So accessories wise, he's covered. He looks pretty cool. I think the accessories that have been included definitely are a welcome addition. Now, onto the figure itself. What an awesome thing to be able to get Cybertron, versions of this guys. Obviously, we got Bumblebee. Now we have Jazz. I'm hoping we get a Wheeljack. And we also have the Seekers from Siege. That were kind of, that were the Tetra Jets, as they call them, right? So it's nice to be able to have these Cybertron modes, even though they weren't that long in the cartoon, right? Just, I believe, from what I recall, just in the first episode. As far as the bot mode itself, looks awesome, looks the part. I think it looks great. I actually think I preferred this head as opposed to the one that came with the Studio Series 1, I believe, Jazz. Not that that was a bad figure, but I tend to prefer this one a little better. I don't know if it's the detailing on the gray and the blue there, but it definitely looks apart. The proportions are well done. I do, however, think this chest may be a tad smaller. The 86 figure, the chest seemed to be a tad too big. Now this one seems a tad too small. But again, it's nothing that takes away from the figure for me. The detailing is definitely there. I love the line work, the Autobot insignia and the blue there, and then obviously the headlights. So that's pretty cool. You guys could see some gray here, black. Even the black had some detailing there. The legs, Yeah, I think great job. He is very poseable. My figure is actually pretty sturdy. Nothing is loose. I will probably say that he's probably more on a bit too sturdy, but at least I prefer that rather than to have loose figures, right? I think it looks really cool. And you guys could see him there. The back, he does have a bit of a backpack, and then he has, I guess, these giant things, which are part of the vehicle mode, right? They're like the spoilers. But you know what? I don't think it bothers me that much. He does have this backpack here, but I may be just biased, right? I'm a pretty big fan of Jazz, but I think it doesn't bother me that much. And this is the one thing that my complaint stems, if you do hear me complain about this figure, has to do with this part of the back, or essentially what is the car roof. This part here, and I'll show you the transformation. As you go through it, this part's going to be holding a bit part of the transformation mode together, and it's clear plastic. And I'm afraid that the way you have to bend this sometimes, especially to try and get this in here, over time, if you do transform your figures quite a lot, I think this may be a bit of a point of failure there. But other than that, awesome figure. He is he is poseable. I mean, like right here, you could see because his legs are so big, he kind of can't do full 90 degree, but you guys could see here the legs, his ankle tilt, the toes do go in, but again, that's part of the transformation, but you can use it to your advantage when posing. Let's see, the legs, again, you can turn them around. They're there. He can kick up. So that's a thing, kick back that much. The backpack starts getting in the way. Let's see. You can turn him fully around as far as the waist, arms. Again, you can turn them fully around, and you can do that. Do the cross there. You can turn this again, probably not too much. You can bend the elbows just that much, and the hands here do not move. They don't swivel or anything, and the head ultimately also does here move completely around. So, and he can look up, not too much, and he can't really look down that much. He'd be looking down at his chest anyway. Another, I guess, small nitpick, and again, is this hollowness here. I really wish, and I've done this with other figures, where part of the transformation involves hiding the hand in there, and it's hollow for now, right? And obviously this section here is part of the transformation, but there's clearly some way they could have, there's a tab here and a tab here, have a plastic piece that perhaps folds down and tabs in place, so that you don't have these hollow sections here. I really detest hollow stuff, but again, it's awesome to get a Cybertron Jazz figure. I would never thought that we would get one specific to that that mode there. So yeah, this robot mode is pretty cool. Again, pretty poseable, and he definitely looks the part. Now, as far as transformation, this is where it gets a little sketchy for me, but I'll try to take you through this. All right, so where do we start? First thing would be the arms here. So essentially, as I was just showing you, these hands, they do lock in place once you have them in bot mode. There you can hear it, but just turn them, fold them in. That's where the hands kind of go in, fold them in. You're good to go from that perspective. The next thing to do is this chest. I think you saw it before. You can pull it out. This is clear plastic as well, but this is not really holding anything in place, so I'm not too worried about it, other than perhaps this section here that tabs in. Just be careful. But you pull this out, you kind of just leave it out like that. You're good. On the back here, pull this whole section out, and this will swivel up, essentially. So it's like this. You can swivel it up. This back part kind of goes down like that. Right? Just leave it loose for now. The instructions do tell you to turn his head, at least from what I remember. I'm trying to do this without any sort of guidance here. And then you can move this up. Just give me a second. All right. So let's move this up this way. And when we do that, then we can move these arms in place. We can turn them in, right? The only thing to keep in mind is that you're going to want the hollow sections here to be facing out, and you're going to slightly angle these out like that. And that's because there's sections here where my thumb is and here that are going to get tabbed into sections in the legs. Once you have that in, then you could take this up, and this section here should technically go tabbed in there. And you will see. There you go. Now you have everything tabbed in place. No issues there. So it's going to look something like this. This is where it gets a little sketchy for me with this whole clear plastic thing, because part of it is essentially, even if I were to undo this part here, right? They want you to fold this out and then bend it in. This is clear plastic, so essentially they want you to do this, which as you guys could see, I'm having a hard time with, but once it tabs in, great. But again, you're kind of forcing this clear plastic to bend just a tad when you're doing that. So there you go. Now you're in. Now the legs. First thing, easy thing here is to fold these in. Fold them in. You're kind of good to go there. Make sure the legs are kind of like straight. So you're good there. You're going to take these out, and these essentially open. So you'll see the sections here. So you're going to open that, and you're going to take this panel out. This panel here, so that it looks like that. You can start to see the side of the car. Now, the instructions essentially tell you to, once you do this, just close this back up. But essentially part of the transformation, once you get this whole section done, you close this and they want you to push this in. I was having a bit of an issue with getting this pushed in because I didn't know how this was supposed to move. So this is supposed to essentially swivel, and you'll see it in place. So you see how the leg's turning, and there is a little tab there. I don't know if you could see it, that black tab, that there's a section that it fits in inside of the foot. So essentially it's gonna sit like this, like that. That's how it should be sitting for it to be put in place. So just make sure that that's in there, just so you can get an idea of, you know, essentially what it is that you're supposed to be doing. And then same thing here. We're gonna get this open here. If I can figure it out. There you go. Get that open, and you're just gonna pull this panel out, and then similarly as I just showed you, just gonna slightly start to push that in. Once you get it that way, you don't necessarily need to keep it open anymore, but just start closing this and then just do that. And now you can start essentially joining the legs together. And then you do that. Now this is again another tricky part for me, because again, as I mentioned earlier, this plastic part is going to be holding onto a lot of pressure. So you see these, the way they're shaped. So essentially you're going to need to lift this slightly so that these go under and starts holding them in place. I would recommend that you kind of keep these doors open. and you start off sort of like that. Right, push the legs in as you're getting it in, right? And then the next thing is these doors. So these tabs worry me, not so much when you need to put them in, but when you need to take them out to get them back into robot mode. I'm afraid these tabs may end up breaking over time. And something else to keep in mind is these sections need to be tabbed into this arm here so that everything fits in place. So, and also these arms, the sections here where my thumb is, that little line is gonna get tabbed into here, where my finger's pointing. So we're gonna attempt to do all this. While I get that in there, right? And now you can try and get that inside like that. And you're kind of in there. Same thing here. We're gonna get the arm in place. And you will see that section right now. It's not fully on. Now it is. And just get everything tabbed in. And here you are. So again, what worries me is this whole plastic section is holding, it has to fit in here, and then it's holding this back part here. So it kind of worries me that over time, if you're constantly transforming this, you may end up breaking this. But what you do get is a very, very faithful mode to that cartoon Cybertron mode for Jazz. And even just sitting there, he looks really cool. I know some folks have made a joke that he looks a bit like a vacuum cleaner, and he does. He looks like what they call a dust buster. So, hey, why not? It's your toy. Do with it as you please. The bottom part is probably, I guess, a bit on the weak side, but I don't really display my toys like that, so I don't really care that much. I mean, and the fact that his legs kind of stick out, sorry, not his legs, but his arms stick out like that a little, help him, give him that floating look, which is really, really cool. The sides, again, a bit panely, and again, a bit unfortunate about the use of clear plastic here. I get, it looks cool with the blue windows and everything, but again, just something to be on the lookout for. I think, be really careful with that. Plain old white with the awesome blue on the back and the front here. The grill, again, really well done, and you can see the chest here, which is kind of cool. But you can see the gray, really well done. Blue, the white, obviously the Autobot insignia looks really cool there in white. And this giant spoiler in the back, and you fold it in the feet, kind of gives them a bit of some exhaust cutouts looking there. But overall, great job, I would say, on this mode. And you can do things like with the weapons, like if you wanted to, you can stick this right here on the roof. There are panels back here. I don't know if this fits. I haven't attempted to try and, I guess it can. It's just a little tight if you wanted to put the hook back there, but I don't do that. But yeah, you can put the gun there. He can shoot Decepticons as he goes. But kudos, man, to Hasbro and Takara. I never thought we'd get a Cybertron Jazz, but here we are, official, right? And it doesn't look too bad at all. So you guys could see the mode there. Okay, so comparisons here to Jazz and his vehicle mode, obviously. I have to put him up next to Bumblebee. And I don't recall, but I don't believe these two actually shared a scene in vehicle modes, at least in the first episode of the cartoon. I think it was Bumblebee and Wheeljack, if I remember correctly. But nonetheless, these two modes look awesome together. This pancake-looking thing and this vacuum, but they do look awesome. I must say I'm glad that we're getting these Cybertron modes. And then just for good measure, because we have to have a Decepticon in here, here's the Siege Thundercracker in his vehicle mode. I love that Siege was also able to give us these Tetrajets modes. I think they look really cool. But you could do some kind of scene where perhaps Thundercracker here is sort of chasing Jazz here. But nonetheless, here you go. These are the vehicle modes compared. Okay, so we got Jazz here in his back to his bot mode here, looking all awesome. Again, awesome little figure here. So before we wrap up, I would recommend this figure, but let's do some comparisons here. So here is the Buzzworthy Bumblebee Origin Jazz, and here is the Studio Series 86 Jazz. He is slightly taller, and obviously you could see the differences there. The one thing that sticks out the most to me, and this is something I mentioned earlier, is this massive chest on the Studio series. I love this figure. Is by no means a bad figure, but I think having these two side by side, you can kind of see the difference there in the chest. I do think this chest may be a tad smaller, but this one's definitely, I think, too big. I think almost the better chest would be somewhere in between. But I actually do think this one does look a little better, at least better proportioned in comparison to the Studio Series, which again by no means is a great figure. Another thing, but as I mentioned, the joints on this guy are pretty tight, which is awesome. Which it's better than I can say for Jazz here. His legs are a little loose, so that's why I mentioned earlier that I prefer the tighter joints versus slightly looser joints there. I think everybody probably feels the same way. As far as the head, it's pretty much the exact same head, but as I mentioned earlier, I tend to prefer this head here. I think it's the blue that calls out better to me than this lighter blue. Both heads are awesome looking, but again, the head here on the Buzzworthy Bumblebee Jazz looks better to me. Other than that, the color, designs are pretty similar. Obviously, Studio Series has this blue here, and I do prefer the silver here. It's a little more brighter or shinier than the flat gray almost here. But other than that, the designs are, again, I mean, it's the same character, right? So there you go. Again, this guy having a bit more of a backpack. He does as well, but I think he does a better job of carrying it. And here are the backs. I do prefer the alt mode on this guy, of course, it being a Porsche Earth mode, but it's so nice to again be able to get this Cybertron. So there you go. I actually do think I prefer the proportions on this guy better. But yeah, it's nice to be able to have these two different versions of Jazz on the shelf. And as far as his mate, his Cybertron mode mate, we'll put this Jazz aside for now. Here he is next to the Bumblebee, the Cybertron mode Bumblebee. And no question, I think the better figure here is this guy. He does a better job of cleaning up the bits. So for example, Bumblebee here, his whole backpack is just kind of there, doesn't fold in or anything. And then the legs here, the leg parts are kind of just hanging out. So again, it was nice to get this Bumblebee for me in the collection. But as far as the bot modes, the Jazz here, I think to me is the better version. But then you could see them there for scale. I think size-wise, they do fit in really well. So let's put them here together with the two Jazzes, whatever you want to call it. But there you go. We'll take this Bumblebee out of the picture and let's get the Netflix Bumblebee. There you go. So you guys can see how that sort of fits in. And this Jazz doesn't want to stand up. There you go. Size comparison. We'll take these two guys out of the picture and let's do some Decepticons. Here's Jazz next to Megatron. Again, that scale works for me. Megatron should always tower over these smaller Autobots. So that works. Here he is next to, this is a Legacy Shrapnel there. That's a newer figure, but I think the size kind of there again works pretty well We'll move these two guys out of the way. What else do we have here? Oh, here he is next to Siege Thundercracker. So you guys can see the difference there. I think that scale works. And here he is next to Siege Starscream. And again, I think that scale works so well. It's really awesome to have all these different figures from all these different lines. And they all fit in really well. So we'll move Starscream and Thundercracker out of the way. And let's see what else we have here. Here he is next to Cyclonus from Kingdom. Again, I don't think we've ever seen these two together. But again, just want to show the size Cyclonus being such an awesome figure. So again, I think that looks really, really cool together. We'll move him out of the way. Let's do some smaller robots here. Here he is next to Cliff Jumper and Wheelie, Studio Series Wheelie. And this is Buzzworthy Cliff Jumper from the Studio Series line. This figure was so hard to get. I thought the Bumblebee figure was hard to get. I think I literally went to like 20 targets to try and find this guy. No luck. Finally, one day, I got lucky on Hasbro Pulse and I was able to order one online. I had actually given up on finding that little one. But thankfully, he is in the collection. But again, you guys could see them. And of course, these two guys were together in the movie Moonbase 1, I believe. So you can recreate that if you so wish, but that being the Cybertron mode. What else do we have here? Oh, here he is next to Perceptor. Again, different line there, but I think that works out well if you want to sort of mix and match. And then why not throw in Twin Cast here so you could see what all these guys sort of look together there. It's awesome again to have all these different lines and figures fit in so well. And then lastly, as we close, here is, of course, next to the main man. You always gotta have Optimus Prime. And then, of course, we'll mix him in with Ironhide here. And that looks so cool. Obviously, really nice to be able to now have a Jazz. I will probably keep him in his Cybertron mode with Bumblebee, since I have this this other guy now that can take his sort of Earth mode. But you know what? I do prefer the proportions on this guy. I think he cleans up a lot better than the Studio Series. The Studio Series is not bad. I think just a huge chest is kind of bothering me now that I noticed it. But they're both great figures. I would highly recommend if you can get your hands on this Cybertron Jazz, that you do add him to your collection. I think he's definitely worth it, at least for me. He's an awesome looking figure. So there we go, guys. Thank you so much if you made it to the end. Again, thank you for spending your very valuable time with me. I really appreciate it. Hope you have a great rest of your day, great rest of your week. Hope things are going well, and if they're not, I'm sure they'll get better. But thank you so much, and I will see you next time.